All righty. Good morning, everybody. My name is Amanda Wiggins, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Marana Chamber of Commerce President and CEO. I want to thank you for attending Marana Insights, the month of July. It's still July, almost August. And this is one of the programs our chamber offers. A lot of you are familiar with it, some of you aren't. It's really what is happening in our community, a space for the community leaders to come before you to tell you, what's happening, how you can make an impact. So we're excited for this program to give you a little insight as we have evolved and want to maximize our programming. We have about 6 people online right now in a Zoom session here, and then we have maybe 30 in person, 20 in person, and so we're going to do the best that we can to make this the maximum experience for everyone. So with that, I'd like to introduce our fearless moderator who does an incredible job for us each time, Jenny Huffman, who's the owner-broker with Imagine Realty Services. So Jenny, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, it's so great to be back at the Northwest Fire Training Facility because we have lots of room and it's pretty convenient for everyone. So before we get started with our first speaker, again, I'd like to go around the room, do introductions. My name is Jenny Huffman. I'm broker owner of Imagine Realty Services, and as Amanda said, you're fearless moderator. Welcome. So we will get started with our first speaker. I hope I don't murder your name. Fausto Burrell?
Yes.
All right. Public Works Deputy Director for the town of Marana, and he's going to give us an update on the airport and other things, right?
Primarily the airport.
Okay, fantastic. Take it away.
So thank you, Amanda and Jimmy. So this show is Fausto Burrell. Work with the airport. They're part of Public Works, and I've had a joy of working with them for about 7 months now. So it's a good experience, a lot of learning curve. We have quite a bit going on, which you'll see in a few. Before I get started, I just want to thank Galen, our airport superintendent, and Linda Draw, our administrative assistant, for helping put this slide together. As you can see, there's going to be a lot of enthusiasm in there because they really are enthusiastic and want to see the airport flourish. So Marana Regional Airport, we always like to tell everybody, it's located 30 minutes northwest of Tucson and near I-10. Marana Regional Airport is perfectly situated for anyone on the go. And as you can see, we have a lot of activities out there. There's flight schools, there's airport maintenance, just a lot of avionic type related activities that continuously go out there. So we have quite a bit of business going on, and hopefully we'll continue to see more. Another thing about Marana Airport is it's convenient. It's known as a place that's relatively easy to come and go, and you can do so sometimes without much fanfare. This picture was actually from last Friday. As you can see, we had a couple high-profile visitors that came through our airport later in the day, and my understanding is, not too many people heard about it. As you can see, you probably recognize some of the faces, but Governor Ducey and ex-Vice President Mike Pence. So these are just some of the high-profile people that come through our airport on occasion. We also have plenty of businesses and CEOs and others that come through. That it's a relatively easy in and out airport. Now that being said, we do have some projects in the work that will make it a little bit different to come in and out of our airport, but it'll still maintain our convenient nature. So Marana Regional Airport is identified by the FAA as ADQ. I know a lot of people ask why ADQ. Don't really know. That's a name that was established years ago, but that's what we have. So that is our name, and I know some people always ask that. Especially as we get into future slides, you're going to see that we're working on some of our branding out there. I don't think this is going to work on the screen. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a black line that kind of bounds the perimeter of the airport to kind of give you an idea of the totality of it. So our airport has 2 runways. Our major runway is what we call 1230, and that's the one that comes from the northwest to the southeast, a little under 7,000 feet long, 6,900. And our crosswind airport is the one that goes from southwest to northeast, called the 321. And that one's just under 4,000 feet long. As you can see the dimensions there, the bigger runway is about 100 feet wide and the smaller one's about 75. So our airport is home to more than 260 based aircrafts and had more than 90,000 takeoffs in this last year. So based aircrafts mean aircrafts that are basically home there. So they're either there on on our taxiway or one of our aprons, or they're in the hangar. 40 businesses based at the airport, so I know that's something you might be interested in, but there is quite a bit of activity. Again, flight school, mechanics, you name it. We have quite a variety of businesses out there, all airport related. And we are eligible for both federal and state grant funding, and I will expand on that in a few more slides. One thing I wanted to hit on and kind of emphasize some of the work that we are doing to kind of help with the growth of the airport, the look, the feel, and as we try to work and move forward, is our maintenance and our operation. So the airport in totality is 610 acres. So as you can imagine, that's a pretty good area to take care of. And it's Galen, as I mentioned, is our superintendent, Linda, and then we have 2 field staff, Charles and Eric, that maintain this total area. And as you recall from the previous slide, there's a good amount of asphalt, but there's also a lot of good amount of open area. As part of the maintenance, we have to keep everything clean, tidy. Obviously, in an airport, you don't want anything that's going to blow onto the runways or cause any type of interruption with the air traffic. So again, our maintenance, we have 2 employees that continue to work on the grounds, and that involves sweeping, crack sealing, mowing, and light replacement. So airports are, on all intents and purposes, a lot of asphalt. I won't call it a road or a street because Galen, he's slapped my hand plenty of times. You don't call it a road or a street. It's not a road or a street. It's an apron, it's a runway, it's a taxiway. So administratively, again, we have 1 employee, and she deals with a lot of building issues. We have gate access badges, and we offer support. So some of the things that we do on our side, we do have some leases, as we have some tie-down areas on the aprons. We do have a badge system, which is a little bit above and beyond what you would usually have at this type of airport, being that it's general aviation. But we do have security measures in place. And then our day-to-day operations, again, Galen's, a lot of his work is tracking flights. We do have parachuting activities that occur out there currently. And we also issue notice to air missions, NOTAMs. One thing you'll recognize or learn soon is that airports really like their acronyms excessively. I'm still trying to learn them. I'm kind of in the in-between phase, so I know enough how to get from, find out where the bathroom is maybe, or uno más cervezas, but that's about as much as I know. But so these NOTAMs, one example is going to come up is we have a current project going on, and sometimes we need to shut down a runway or shut down a particular area of the airport. When you do those things, it's not as easy as kind of as the road. We try to let the traveling public know what's going on. In the airport, you have to, obviously the FAA requirements and all that. So you do a public notification that goes out to all users, so they know that, hey, you can't fly into this particular runway or use it. So again, some of our operations that we have, we're working on, for this coming years, we're working on mastic, and that's some of our taxiways and our ramps. Mastic is a little bit above crack seal. It's a similar material, but it has an aggregate in it, and it's made for larger cracks. One thing that we've identified is our airport, honestly, we needed to do a little bit more maintenance than we have done in the past. So we made a concerted effort this year to ask for a little bit more funding and to present why we need these fundings. And the town was, fortunately, they were open and accepted that we needed to put a little bit more towards that. So we're going to do those type of activities. The other thing that Galen and his team have really jumped on is the Cartograph. Cartograph is a work asset software program. So it's an asset management, but it's also a workflow program. What it really does, it lets you, as you acquire your assets, put them into the system, then you start doing work towards those assets. So it lets you track your activities, but it also lets you know your condition of your assets and just several other, it'll give us quite a bit of information to let us know how our operations are going. And as we continue to grow and work towards it, it'll help us keep a better track of our assets and their conditions. And the team has been all in. They've really been active working with that. Our kudos to our TS department, as they have the asset coordinators on their end and the GIS. So this is also graphical and mapped out. So this will also identify areas that work is tied to. So that's something that we're really excited to have that in place. Working on the sweeping schedule around the hangar. So we're just trying to establish a little more structure with some of our activities. And then again, upgrading our signage. And a lot of these are tied back to the asset program. Once we get all that in place, we'll really be able to keep track of these. Something that we've been doing on our administrative side is we're updating our website now. So getting into the next one, you'll see we have a team effort right now as we're working with the communications department, and we're really working towards establishing a brand and marketing for the airport. So we are actively working on that. We have a great communications team with Miranda, and they have come with us with a lot of ideas. And then Galen and his team have also provided a lot of good ideas. I'll be honest, some of it is not recreating the wheel, but it's looking at other airports' websites and kind of getting an idea of what they have. So as you know, we all like to see what we like, what we don't like, what we think is going to work for Miranda. But in the end of the day, it will be a Miranda brand. So we work on promoting the airport. We're doing a little event this coming Friday. It's called Popcorn Friday. It's something the town has actually implemented through all departments. You know, there's popcorn machines throughout the town. So, and few people have popcorn here and there, but the airport said, hey, why don't we do it? But we're going to open it up a little bit. So this is also for the clients out there, for anybody who's out the airport. But it's also, we let Public Works know. So if they're cruising through the area, they're welcome to swing by too, because we're all part of the Public Works team. Again, working with the communications, I mentioned, we're branding. And then creating, maintaining new billing for transient. Oh, okay, this is something that we're discussing. Currently, you can fly into our airport relatively easy, as I mentioned before. There is no fees for making touchdowns, stopping in, things like that. And there's also people that come through and stay overnight and other things. We're just trying to get a little bit more, make that a little bit more digital and improve that process a little bit. So now I'm going to get into some of the projects that we have underway. So again, pretty much every single one of these are federal or state funded in some shape or form. This first one, I apologize, I know it's fairly wordy, but I'll do my best to summarize. We had a safety study performed on the airport, and one of the issues identified is the proximity of the 1230 runway to Aber Valley Road. So as part of this study, they gave quite a few alternatives that could potentially mitigate the issue. One of them was rerouting Aber Valley Road. You can imagine that would not be an easy endeavor, and there's a lot of challenges to that. Another alternative was potentially extending the airport of the runway to the northwest. Again, similar challenges, other type of issues. So I'm not going to go through every single alternative, but what we landed on was this area identified in yellow, which is what we call our EMAS. Let me make sure I get that right. Engineered Material Arresting System. Or, so most of you will understand, if you've seen the run off the truck areas as you're going up and down I-17 or through the mountains, your runaway truck, similar, very similar type of concept. It's made to catch any plane that were to potentially run off the airport would be caught in this material and obviously not go any further than that extra 1,000 feet that's there. So, or that, sorry, not 1,000 feet, but the extra dimension, whatever that is, I'm not sure. But yeah, so the FAA does consider this to be an acceptable means of being compliant. So now what that does is that actually does bring our airport into compliance once we have that built. It is not built at this point in time. We have not met the threshold of really requiring that. A lot of these metrics are based on not only how much airport traffic you have, but the size and the type of airport traffic. So as you'll see in a few more projects, we have a few things that will probably increase that. Not only our traffic flow, but also the size of planes that we get on a more average basis, if you will. But we're just not there yet. So, but we do have this identified, and it is in our 5-year plan to have this project built. So one of the current projects we have right now is, we just call it our lighting project. It's an upgrade project out at the airport. Again, getting back to the acronyms, there's going to be quite a few here, but I will spell them out. But for ease of understanding, it's basically our runway lights, and the lights along some of our taxi areas, and also the light, our beacon, which is the big light bulb up on a tower, which we have an image that'll show you that. But so the MERLs are your medium intensity runway lights, and then your PAPIs are, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but there's 4 red or white balls, lights as they fly in. What this does is tells the pilot their approach, whether they're too high, too low, or just right. So that's our precision application path indicator. Our reels, our runway and identifier lights, again, lights along the edge. And then we're replacing both runway regulators, which is some of the electrical equipment you need as part of this, and the beacon, which has already been upgraded as part of this project. Like most things, we hate to say it, we keep saying it, but COVID did have some impacts on some of our projects. Supply chain issues, materials. This project was identified to be wrapped up last fiscal year, but unfortunately materials, there was quite a bit of a lead time. So we're going to have it wrapped up. But it is currently underway, and it should be done within another 4 months or so, give or take. So I know this picture is a little bit hard to see, but on the left is our old light. As you can see, it's a pretty big light, a pretty big fixture and all of that. And on the right, it's, well, you can hardly make it out, but it is on there. And my understanding is that it's exponentially brighter than the previous light. So we actually were concerned, like we figured once we put it in place, we'd probably hear about it. Knock on wood, we have not, but I think everybody does actually, all the pilots we've heard some say, yeah, now I can see it from Phoenix. So I don't know if they can, but so some of our other projects we have coming up, and these are multi-year projects, is we are reconstructing some of the pavement around some of our hangar areas. One thing we do, kind of getting back to the cartograph software that we discussed earlier, and in working with ADOT, they do come through and they assess our pavement, and they tell us what condition it's in. It's something we do on public works for the town of Miranda with our roadways as well. And they identify these areas are beyond the point of doing any type of rejuvenation. It basically needs to be a reconstruction project. So we are currently underway with the design of that. So what we have here, again, I don't have the aerial of the airport, but the one on the left is the east hangar project. So the red identifies the area in question. And then the one on the right is our west hangar project. So the east hangar is identified to construct first. And again, with the timing of everything, design would have been wrapped up this last fiscal year. We would be in construction right now. A little bit behind that, but it is a 2-year construction project phase. So we have full confidence we'll get that pushed back into the 2-year frame. So currently we have 30% submittals for the east hangar. And then they're still working on the west hangar, but the west hangar is actually a few years out. We're going to construct the east hangar. It's going to take 2 years. The west is going to take 2 years. So we have a little bit of time there. So our big project, I'm sure most of you have heard about and we're excited about, is our airport traffic control tower project. So when you enter into these type of programs, there's actually a process to it. We submit to the FAA tower program, and if you're selected, you have a 5-year window to do so. So we were fortunate to do that process, and in 2019, we were given the approval to move forward. And so that brings us to today. So what we're currently at is, and I guess before I go too far, I want to make sure everybody understands the fiscal year and the time frame we're talking about. To not confuse anybody, there's also a federal fiscal year tied to all of this, but I'm talking about our fiscal year, which goes from July 1 through the end of June. And currently we would be considered in our fiscal year 23. Federal does it a little bit different. They would call it 22 right now. And of course they go through the end of September, from October 1 through the end of September. So to not confuse anybody, we're just going to stick with our fiscal year. So our tower siting study is all but wrapped up. It was identified and due to be wrapped up last fiscal year. The only thing is, you can imagine, it's taking some signatures from FAA, and we're waiting on those. Our understanding, the project is pretty much completely good. We're just waiting for those final signatures. That takes us into the next phase of the project, which is this fiscal year, and we're currently having discussions with the consultant on that to get everything ready to go, and that would be on environmental assessment. So when you do any of these projects and it's tied to federal funding, there are certain criteria you must meet, one of them being the whole environmental and everything else that's tied to that. So that is something we are currently working on. Following the environmental, we're going to get into our design and then control tower construction. So everything, yes, ma'am.
Regarding the control tower, that's going to be a manned control tower, so we have ATCs there.
It's going to be a manned control tower, and it'll be manned by FAA staff. So we will be the owners of the building, but they will have their equipment and their staff manning it.
Okay, so from a funding standpoint, there won't be any salary concerns or any of that for the town or the airport?
The continued funding implication or cost will be our maintenance of the building. Yeah, but as far as the rest of it is all FAA. So good question, thank you. So yeah, I think that wraps this one up. This image is a little bit skewed. We're not going to have a short, stubby tower. Sorry, you didn't really, I wanted to at least have an exhibit that kind of illustrated it. So the tower it'll be longer than it's shown here, or taller. We're looking at a deck height, which is where your air traffic control tower controller would stand, which is basically that platform where the windows are, but that is approximately, give or take, I think at 90 feet right now. Our total tower is right under 100 foot in height, and that is a magic threshold. Once you reach that height, you start to trigger other things. But we also, this goes through a lengthy process. As part of the siting study, FAA's in the room. We actually had the assistance of an air traffic control tower out of the Tucson airport. He actually donned some virtual reality goggles, and it was as if he was standing in it looking around. And fortunately, when he walked into the room, when we first met him in the morning, he kind of pointed and said, that place right there, if I were given an airport and told nothing else, I would put a tower there. And that's pretty much where we're going to place the tower. Because he really loved the view and everything, and he said, this works perfectly. But yeah, they take everything into consideration with these simulations. They can make it look like as if it's dusk or dawn. They can say the path of the sun at the given time of the year. So they take everything into. It was very interesting, and fortunately, that's about the time I came on board. I got to sit in on this process. So now I want to just jump into a brief 5-year plan of what we have going on out at the airport. And again, I'm sorry, some of this might be a little hard to see back there. But again, our first one is our environmental assessment for the tower. The next one is our automated weather observation system. We're just upgrading that. We have a little bit archaic system, so we're going to a newer system. East White Hangar apron reconstruction, which I mentioned previously. And then our airport layout plan, your airport layout plan is basically like all of us. It's your guide document, our Bible, if you will, kind of showing how the airport will build out in the future. And it does change a little bit over time, but when you identify the need to change it, you want to make sure you add that to the plan so it's updated. So in this case, we're going to add that EMAS project that I mentioned to you. So at the end of the runway, we're obviously going to throw the tower in there now that we know what location where it will be. It was identified previously. It just was kind of in a general area, which wasn't too far off where it ended up being, but now we know exactly where it's going to go. And then some other things like land releases, which I'll get into that a little bit further. So then this coming fiscal year 24 is when we get to the design for the tower. We are actively working on continually upgrading our fencing. We have some a little bit older chain link fences on the north or the backside of our airport, if you will. So that's part of this drainage study. Like most things, our airport isn't too far off the Santa Cruz, and you know there's drainage through the area, so that's something we contend with. And our East Hangar apron reconstruction phase 2, so that's the second year of the construction. And then in the coming years, we're going to jump into the West Hangar construction. So again, getting back to fiscal year 25, that's when we're going to kick off the traffic control tower construction. And this land acquisition for state land, actually, that's something that may change. If you were to pull up a parcel map, you'll see that there's some state land identified over the airport. However, we have done some research and found documents that basically, for all intents and purposes, the land was relayed to us. We just don't have, I won't say underlying rights, but it's right of way, but not fee title, or it's ours, but not fee title. I'm not a land, that's not my thing, but I did read the document, and it basically said that at the time it was relayed, it was like a 99% payment of the total estimated cost of the property, and basically it gave, at that time, Peabody County, which relayed to us the land. So we feel comfortable now that we no longer have to pursue that. The West Hangar reconstruction, as mentioned previously, will start their first phase this year. So in future years, we have more projects identified, but as you know, in future years, that's when things get a little bit dicey, that they could shift, could change. But right now, we do have our taxiway C reconstruction design identified, the West Hangar phase 2 construction, which that one I don't see changing. We do have some taxiway reconstructions, runway reconstructions of our smaller runway, the crosswind one that I identified earlier, and just some extensions and other projects that we have going on that are tied to that. And as you can see, there's an environmental assessment tied to that as well. One thing to keep in mind, and I apologize for not mentioning earlier, on all of these funding, when we receive ADOT and or federal funding, the town's match is typically in a 5 to 10% range max. So that's about what we're paying. When you see some of these big ticket items up there, we're paying a very minute portion of that, which is great. But obviously, when you have federal funds, there's other activities tied to it. So it's a lot of work. As they say, there's no free lunch. But we have people in place that help us with that. We have grant managers and obviously our finance department. And of course, Galen and his staff. So now as we get into fiscal year 26, again, a lot of projects that we've identified that hopefully, if the plan goes correctly, we'll have all these in place. Some more reconstruction of the ones identified earlier, because obviously there's the design portion, and then there's an actual construction activity. So taxiways, CNA, runway 321, now it will be the construction phase of it. Noise study update. Unfortunately, people think airports put off a little bit of noise at times, I guess, or we hear about planes flying overhead. So we do those studies in time. Taxiways, lighting upgrades, as you saw previously, we are continuously trying to actively improve our airport. And then here's the EMAS project that I mentioned earlier. So that would be in future years. By that time, we think we'll be at the threshold of needing that improvement because we'll have plane activity that will trigger that. And then now to get into a little bit of development talk, which I know you guys are really interested in. So we'd like to say our first kickoff on our north side of our airport is the J.D. Russell currently constructed a hangar over there for their corporate jets, somewhere for them to be housed. So this is hopefully first step of many other projects to come. We have been having active discussions with entities looking at developing in the airport, and we're really excited about that. So this, and again, I apologize if it's hard to see, but there's a little blue square, and that kind of identifies the location of the J.D. Russell. What else might be kind of hard to see is there's actually a roadway that wraps around the side of that. That is technically outside the airport, although it is an industrial area with airport activity identified. That roadway has just recently become actual right-of-way for the town. So now our public works crews will be working on that road, maintaining it, and improving it. It was built quite a few years ago, but it hadn't received much maintenance. But the intent being is to really dress up the area and hopefully get more activity in that area as far as development. So with that, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I was looking at the numbers on there and the dollars. I have to say we're a retired banker, so I'm always chasing the money. Help me understand you had first slide, you like 2.8 million, and then at 4 million, and at 14.5, and then there's a 19 on it. Is all that like 50? This is all a $50 million project, or it seemed like there was some overlap with construction costs on some of the slides. Was it just broken down by year? What's the big? And is all that money already approved and allocated from grants?
So yes and no.
Okay.
Every year the grants it kind of goes through the process. But as far as some of the big figures you saw, as far as let's say the tower, for instance, we are in the 5-year program, and there are identified steps and funding tied to that. So as you see, it got bigger and bigger because at the end you are actually constructing it. So that's where the big ticket item is. Some of the other projects identified are year-over-year grant acceptance. So it's not a cumulative, while some of the projects do, because we have a design phase, we have a construction phase, and as you saw, some of them are broken up into multi-year construction. But all of the funding is identified. When you come up with this 5-year plan, which we broke it up in individual slides, it's actually a 5-year document that we submit to ADOT and the FAA. We have discussions with them, and then we do get their buy-off and approval on that. So they understand and they know in the coming years, these are grant funds that are going to be allocated to that. And again, of that total funding you saw, ours is anywhere from a 5 to a 10% match. So it's very minimal compared to that. But it's just that we have bigger projects coming up and they just happen to be hitting at some of them at the same time.
And then if I can ask a different question, maybe over the years there's been discussion about Canal Airport and Marana annexing that area.
That is mutually exclusive from this project.
Yeah.
That's also,
Okay.
But we do actually coordinate with them. In fact, it wasn't on the slide, but we just had the Arizona Airport Association, sorry, another acronym. I have too many acronyms in front of me. Their association for all the airports within Arizona, and actually the conference was held here, and it was hosted by ourselves and Pinal Airport. So we did joint hosting, and the mayor gave a very good speech at the beginning of the conference too, as we kick off. Thank you. Good questions. Any more?
How are the airport codes established? You know, a lot of times they match the town that they're in or the community they're in. And ours is ABQ, right?
We just had this discussion, and honestly, it's a little bit of voodoo. But so Marana Airport started off, its identifier was Aver Valley.
That makes sense.
And Aver Valley was the identifier. But it does bring up, speaking of Pinal Air Park, I think their identifier, they're associated with Marana. So it is a little bit of confusion that occurs there. As we talked about our branding and as we move forward, there is a process to actually change that identifier. I don't know how easy that is, but we've had those discussions. But yeah, where did ABQ come from? So Aver Valley is the reason why it started with the AV. It's my understanding.
Yes, correct.
One more, I'm sorry to monopolize, but what's the largest aircraft that the airport can handle now from the landing standpoint? I know in the past it was not the length of the runway as much as the width of the
Yeah,
runway.
it's still the width.
Okay.
Yeah, we have Gulfstreams and global large corporate jets. Yeah. Yeah, even during the pandemic, we had some smaller commercial jets that were parked out there.
That's what I thought.
That's about as big as yes, and that's about as big as we can go.
So would that be like in reference?
That is 747, man.
Yes, we landed.
We landed, we heard about that. Yeah, that was one way. Thank you. And that's why Galen's here, because he knows, he's been with the airport for about 18 years, so he has a lot of information, wealth of information. Thank you. Good questions. Anybody else?
Did we have any questions online, Amanda?
You can ask if there's any.
Yeah, hello. Any questions online? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Excellent information. Very excited about the tower. I know that's been something we've been talking about for years. So our next speaker is Warden Jeremy Casey from the Marana Community Correctional Treatment Facility, and going to give us an update on that. Welcome.
Well, first thing, thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Mayor Honey, for the opportunity to deliver our message. A lot of people don't know. It's funny when I go to these meetings because a lot of people don't even know there's a prison out in Miranda, which it's a couple miles just west of the airport, maybe a little less than 3 miles, I think, from the airport. So obviously, I work for Management and Training Corporation, which is under contract to operate the state prison for the state of Arizona. So we've been operating the facility since 1994. A little bit about the company I work for, Management and Training Corporation. We have a couple different core businesses. Obviously, corrections is one, which we fall under. We do education and training, operate job corps centers throughout the nation as well. We've recently, in probably the last 10 years, got into operating medical facilities within the prisons and jails as well. And then we have an economics and social development we do in third world countries, things like that, like Egypt and things like that. We have another part of it, which I'm not real familiar with, but another part of our company. But, you know, our mission statement is obviously to change the lives of those in our care, the residents, and deliver better people out into the community. So these people might be your neighbors after incarceration. So our philosophy is to pretty much make them better people, provide them with the treatment, the substance abuse or family-oriented anger management, reentry back into society so they don't fall back onto the things that got them into prison, reduce recidivism for the state. So a little bit of history on MTC itself. We started in 1981 operating federal job corps centers throughout the nation. We're currently the #1 leading privately operated job corps contractor for the federal government. So we operate 23 facilities over the nation right now. Is everybody familiar with what job corps is? Job Corps centers pretty much are for less fortunate young adults, anywhere from 16, I believe, to 26, delivering vocational traits, education, things like that to make them employable and give them an opportunity to, find a job or be success. Usually it's ones who haven't had those tools to them. They're unfortunate throughout while they were growing up or something like that. We provide the housing and the training at the Job Corps facility. In 1987, MTC started with going into correctional operation. We took that same philosophy into the prison system, as the Job Corps thing is, delivering those vocational traits, treatment, programming, those type of things to the incarcerated population, with that same philosophy. Now, everybody hears prison, to house them, to serve their sentences, things like that, but that's not MTC's philosophy. MTC's philosophy is to make them better while they're, productive while they're in prison, to improve their lives. So we do it through a lot of different ways, but we currently operate 28 correctional facilities throughout the nation, 1 internationally, and then parole and probation in the UK, along with 2 new community release centers, which we're getting into as another part of our business, which is after incarceration, providing housing and continuing education and treatment, stuff like that for them after they've served their sentence or something in the community. So specifically about the Arizona State Prison Marana, I know a lot of people, Miranda Community Treatment Facility was the original name of the facility. When our original contract in 2013 expired, the Arizona Department of Corrections took ownership of the property, so they had renamed it the Arizona State Prison in Marana itself, but originally was Marana Community Treatment Facility. So it was built by us in 1994. It houses 500 minimum security residents. We're trying not to call them inmates. We're trying to get rid of that label in the community. So you might hear offenders or residents versus inmates and get rid of that tag. But originally it was built as male-female in 1994, but it has changed over the years and it's all male facility now. House nonviolent offenders, mostly drug offenses, DUI, things like that, short sentences. We don't have rapists, sex offenders, anything like that, anybody convicted of murder. They do have to have less than 5 years on their sentence remaining. So most of it's short sentence. The average length of stay is just over a year, so it's about 380 days. We do have a handful of inmates that have been there probably 3 years plus, which those you may see working out in the community. If you live in Marana, you may see the guys in orange on the roadways and stuff. We have a fairly large crew that goes out for the town of Marana and various throughout the city doing roadways, maintenance, wastewater treatment plant. The airport has a guy or 2 that work out there to help them with landscape, general things like that. As I was saying, our philosophy is to deliver the programs to the resident population, while they're incarcerated. This is a list of some, and then on the overview, it also lists them as well on the back side. But education-wise, we do general education, GED, adult basic education. We have a partnership with Adams State University, Rio Salado Community College, which, thank you again, Mayor. The mayor is pretty reliable to come out and speak at our GED graduations. We hold GED graduations every quarter. We just had one of our largest ones this last quarter. We had, I think it was 23, 24 guys that graduated, with addition to somebody who graduated from college as well that attended it. And we give them an opportunity to have their families come in as visitors to recognize their accomplishment while they're in prison. It's pretty amazing to see anywhere from 18-year-old to 70 plus get their GED. To see it in their face, the success, they've an accomplishment for them, that they've been fighting for. So some of the skills oriented, life skills, cage your rage, anger, choice and change. We do culture diversity classes, financial peace. 6 months prior to release, we start doing reentry planning and stuff. So it helps them establish a place to go when they're released. We even help them try to find jobs. We do job fairs every quarterly, which will invite local companies in that are willing to hire convicted felons on that. So that way they can start applying for jobs prior to their release and go out with something. Well, but religious faith, then we have all faiths, religious volunteers that come in, rather consistently in the evenings, on the weekends, things like that, and provide different faith services for the population. Substance abuse, we are licensed under the Arizona State Behavioral Health Board. We have 3 licensed substance abuse counselors that are LISAC certified that deliver intensive treatment and moderate treatment to them while they're incarcerated. Vocational is a big one. You know, we have the National Construction Education Program, which provides them certifications that they can take away from the facility for stuff like OSHA, safety. We've done electricians in the past, plumbing, things like that, that they can take that makes them more employable upon release as well. Just recently, last week, we started a Servsafe program, a culinary program, which they can take away as well. So it's kind of due to COVID and our low numbers, and then we've got some guys that have been there for quite a while that have already completed a lot of the programs. So we try to re-spark it and offer a different one. So we started up the Servsafe culinary program that they can take away, which seems to have a lot of interest right now. They're voluntary programs. They're not forced to attend these. So these guys have to volunteer to improve themselves. Certain programs are mandatory, like reentry and some of the substance abuse ones, depending on what their charges are and stuff like that. But, we're also looking at doing some computer applications. We're looking at hopefully trying to develop a relationship with I'm not sure what the name of the company is, but our company's trying to get into coding, things like that for computers, some things that are never going away, technology, you know, keep them up current with that. So some of our national accreditations, we are the only facility in the state of Arizona to have all 3 of these certifications. One of the big ones is the American Correctional Association. These are all DOJ funded audits that are higher standards than what we're under contract to operate the facility for with the state of Arizona. So these take us up to a higher level. Prison Rape Elimination Act's a big one. On that, we've been accredited since 2014 when all that went into a requirement for us to do. National Commission on Correctional Health Care, which is a higher standard of providing health care to the population as well. Some of the things I'm proud of is our community involvement. I think we do a lot for the community. You know, being a small facility, we have local intergovernment agency contracts with the town of Miranda, which we've had since probably right after 1904. I mean, Mr. Honey's been there since day one, so he helped find the land, build the facility. You know, the partnership's been, you know, at the town of Miranda from the time it was built. So we do a lot of different things for the town of Miranda. They're so spread out. If I miss a couple, let me know. You know, we got Public Works, the airport, streets. You know, a lot of different agencies, wastewater. They're pretty spread out throughout the town. But we also have a small group of probably about 15 inmates who go out to the town of Oro Valley as well, kind of with the same intent with the town of Marana on them, just a little smaller level. Out at Evergreen, we have a contract with DEMA out there. You know, they take a small little group out there that does landscaping maintenance and things as well out at the air park. And then we also have 3 Arizona correctional industry contracts with local businesses of them that the state of Arizona and ourselves have entered into providing labor for. One is Ballard Truss, if you've seen it not too far before Eloy out the side of the road where they built the big trusses for houses and such. LP Steel in Stanfield, just off of I-8. And then we've also got Eastern Style builders off of the Marana Road, which currently they're shut down right now. But we've provided that labor since I think 1997 to them. So in addition to that, we have some pretty significant accomplishments just over 2021, and it might not seem big, but it is pretty big with our low population numbers, you know, at the facility. Currently, we're just under 50% capacity right now. With COVID and everything, they stopped arresting people and putting them into the jails, and then, you know, kind of leaving them on the streets while they pen their charges. So there's kind of a bottleneck in the court system right now. And they've also reduced some of the charges with Senate bills, things like that, like the not serious, I guess, marijuana violations, things like that. With the legalization of marijuana, has kind of changed some of the stipulations on those charges, which has allowed them to get out of prison earlier than what they were originally sentenced for. So last year alone, we have fundraisers, and this is the resident population making these donations that are up here. A little over $12,000 to local nonprofit organizations. pretty strong tie to the Marana Food Bank, the local food banks in the area, Picture Rocks, Ever Valley, and the Marana Food Bank. We do a lot for them throughout the year. Just recently, well, last year, we entered an agreement with Arizona Youth Partnership in the town of Marana, which, provides like suicide for youth, things like that, programming, things like that, mental health stuff. And then right now, I'm working on a partnership with a place called Agape out just before it's between Marana Road and Red Rock exits, I think, out there. And they provide equine therapy for PTSD and then some disabilities, things like that for children as well. So that's a pretty interesting one that we're starting to work towards right now to assist them in some of the things. But donating clothing, the staff donated clothing to the local homeless shelters, things like that towards the end of last year. And then, like I said, GED is probably one of our biggest success rates, but just last year alone, over 700 various certificates for different programs were delivered, so like that, and they can take away from the facility. And then this year, just some of the initiatives, just to let you guys know, we have quarterly initiatives throughout the year as well. So one of the ones we did, and this includes the resident population and the employees of the facility, we do certain things. So the first quarter of this year, we keyed towards nutrition. Trying to make better, healthier eating habits, things like that for both the residents and the employees at the facility. Second quarter was fitness, so we did various things at the facility as well to just encourage movement and not idleness at the facility. Same thing with the employees. One right now that we have as a challenge for the employees is we all got Fitbits. I bought them all Fitbits or pedometers and things, so we're counting our steps. So we're competing against all of our facilities so we can do the most steps. So we have a map in our hallway of the United States, and at each of our facilities, there's a star. And it takes just about 7,600 miles to do a full lap over all of our facilities. And we're almost done with our second lap. So our goal was 20 million steps, but we've already blown that out of the water the first 7 months of the year. So it's competitive. So I think it just pushes it and gets people to do it a little more and stay active. This quarter, we're currently working on emotional and mental health. So we're doing a lot of additional training, providing resources for various things like suicide, mental health, with COVID, things like that, just trying to ensure that we make our employees and the residents aware of what the resources are out there to do. And then we're providing additional training every month on that as well. And the last quarter is going to be under environmental health. So we're going to look at assessing our lighting, noise, things like that, sweet sleep, to try to make it a more pleasant, and healthier environment through some of the environmental stuff. We're actually trying to work towards, right now, going green too with solar panels and things like that in the parking lot. So in the middle of negotiating with the Department of Corrections and stuff on that, since it's their property. So with that being said, I don't want to stay too long, but I'm going to leave it open to anybody who has questions about the facility or things specific.
Have you ever had a training program for your residents to train dogs?
I knew you were going to ask that. But we do. We have not here, but we have several of our facilities throughout the nation. Specifically, I want to say our facility in Ohio, Florida, and I think a couple in Texas that do various types of training, whether it's service handler or, disability, assistance, things like that we do. I've tried, I would love to have a dog program at our facility.
We would love for you to have a dog
So,
program.
it's amazing the passion you see from the residents when they get involved in doing something like that and the connection that they have. So, yes. Unfortunately, it involves the Department of Corrections approving it as well. But I would love to, because just seeing that type of program at some of the facilities that I went to that we operate, it's amazing what they do. It really is amazing.
Great job skills to have on the outside too.
Any other questions? Any questions online? Well, again, thank you, Amanda, for again, Mayor Holman, thank you.
Ryan and we can hear him and see the report.
Perfect. Yeah, so our next speaker is going to be virtual. So it'd be Ryan Wisman, of Economic Development and Tourism for the town of Marana, and give us an update on what's going on with building permits and such.
All right, good morning, everyone. Once again, sorry for being here virtually instead of there in person, but I'll try my best to give the report as is. Can you guys see the single family residential permit report on in person there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So just kind of to go through that quickly. So in terms of single family residential permits, there were 63 issued during the month of June. As you guys can see, that's slightly up from May, still a little bit below what our average has been in the past. We largely think that that's from mostly supply side market factors that are driving that number down a little bit. However, people are still wanting to move here to Marana. There is still that high demand for housing. We think that most of those lower numbers are on the supply side. May, June, July are typically slower months for us anyways. Most of those permits have still been in Northeast Marana, so Dove Mountain, Twin Peaks area. And then Northwest Marana is after that, Gladden Farms. That also includes the Mandarina development at Tangerine and I-10. I don't know if permits have fully been issued for that yet, but that development is moving forward. It's going to be coming online in the relatively near future. Going down to commercial building permits, we had 10 permits issued in June of 2022 in terms of new builds. CTI Trucking at Tangerine and 10, their facility and headquarters that's going to be moving from Rito into the Marana town limits, was approved for construction. Marana RV Storage, the Spring Hill Suite at Marana Center, and the My Place Hotel at Cortero are all have all been issued permits and are just about ready to go. Any questions on the permitting side of it, either commercial or residential? Before I move real quickly into the just a quick overall economic development update.
I have a quick question, of course.
Yeah.
Do you know, with the Amazon facility at Ina and Silverbell, is there something on the northwest corner, which would be directly west of them? That's a goofy intersection, so I'm pretty sure it's northwest. They're working on the culvert over there and doing it, and there's some equipment there. Are they just storing equipment there, or is there actually something going to happen on that corner?
I'm not exactly sure. I know that there is some residential development, multifamily residential specifically in that's planned in that area. I think that's mostly north and west of the Amazon facility there, though, at Ina and Silverbell. And yeah, there had been some multifamily residential, and I believe there's some under construction north of that distribution facility also.
Yeah, okay.
I think that answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, it does, thank you.
Any other questions?
None in the room, Ryan.
Okay, seeing none, sorry about that. So just a quick overall economic development update. So to start off, at Tangerine and I-10, the as many of you guys may have heard, so Amazon was looking at that parcel at the largest parcel of that kind of subdivision there. They were going to build a 1.4 million square foot distribution center there. However, they at the corporate level, their expansion strategy has changed a little bit. So they're no longer interested in that property specifically. The good news with that is there is another company that is interested in that parcel, and we're working with them right now. They're in their due diligence phase, so nothing can be announced for now, but there is another company that's showing some good interest in that location. So it will still be the home of or if all goes right, it'll still be the home of a major employer that'll contribute a lot to the local economy, jobs, landscape, that kind of stuff. At that location, the Miranda, just an update on Miranda Center, so Twin Peaks and I-10 near the premium outlets. Luke Auto Dealership and HSL Properties, they're constructing an apartment complex there. Both of those are under construction right now and have gone vertical. The Spring Hill Suites, as I mentioned in the permit report, has been permitted and it should be ready to start construction very soon. American Furniture Warehouse, they're on their third submittal for plan review. So they should be also starting construction fairly soon. Just in general, our department's also undertaking kind of an effort to recruit some restaurants, specifically more medium to higher scale sit-down restaurants to Tangerine Road and I-10. There is some property there that is designated for commercial use. At first there, and then eventually transitioning up into the future downtown Marana area near the Marana Road exit. And yeah, we've been putting out mostly just cold calls to various restaurant holding groups in Phoenix and also in Tucson. We're mostly looking for locally owned stuff. However, even if it's just regionally owned or even a national chain with a local fare with kind of a local twist to it, or just full on national chains in general, there's not a ton of sit down restaurants up in Northwest Marana, so anything would be good at this point. So we've been doing some things to increase our presence among the restaurant community, and then try to get some of those here in Marana, since that's a fairly immediate development opportunity there for Tangerine and I-10. I think that's pretty much everything else. Also at Tangerine and I-10, Southern Arizona Logistics Center, I'm sure it's been mentioned by Kurt or myself before, and 5 spec buildings for industrial light manufacturing and distribution. Also at Tangerine and I-10 by a developer from Kansas City. They've closed on that land and should be moving forward with the development process. Any questions?
There was a question in the chat box. Is Amazon building housing next to facility on Ina and Silverbell? Question.
Amazon is not directly building it. However, there is housing being built there. I can't remember the developer on it. I don't think it's HSL, but it's not Amazon who directly owns it now. But housing is going up.
And no more questions in the room.
Okay, thank you everyone once again. Sorry for.
There is one in the back.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The name of the Kansas City developer?
It's Flint Development out of
Flint Development out of Kansas City.
Yeah.
Okay, Ryan, thank you.
All right, thank you everyone.
Thank you. So I know we went over a little bit, but because we do have some people in the room, I want to kind of get some feedback on. So Terry, I saw you kind of come in, so you can't get past me. Anything to add?
Lots going on in town. Obviously, had an amazing Star Spangled Spectacular event. We had that sense that it was amazing that the team did an incredible job of putting that together. And we had probably 10,000 to 12,000 people in the park alone, plus a lot of people outside the park. So looking forward now planning our fall festival here in October. So we got some big things going on out there, and some things that we hope to unveil from a historical perspective, a heritage perspective, that we've been working on, and hope to have that done too before the fall festival. It makes the mayor really happy.
great, thank you. And Northwest Fire, did you have anything to mention?
Nothing specifically to add, but things, of course, are busy. I'm sure people are paying attention to the news and recognizing that there is a slight uptick with COVID. That's not anything that our organization can't handle. We're very well prepared in light of what we've gone through in the last couple of years as far as ramping up supplies and messaging. And then most importantly, probably, and what we're all noticing is that the last week, really, our monsoon season has sort of arrived and is here in a big way, particularly in Marana. So just reminding people to be extra cautious and never enter a flooded roadway or take chances, because it's a very scary predicament, and arguably one of the most dangerous rescues that we ever execute is a swiftwater rescue because of the amount of variables. So outside of that, life is good at Northwest Fire.
So, Patty, anything? Councilman Comerford.
Oh, darn, you woke me up.
Dang it.
I'm trying to think real hard, and I think it's all been covered.
Get your early ballots in.
Get your early ballots. Oh, yeah. No, it's too late to mail your ballots. So take them to a voting center.
Yes.
One,
And you can
we
vote.
all tapped out it. Library.
Yes, there is, and you can vote and turn in ballots to any facility in Pima County now. It's not like your.
You don't have to be, you don't have to be
Designated.
your
Or
designated.
Chamber of Visitors.
We're not
They used to be there.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Good to know.
And the current ones are different from the ones on August 2nd. The August 2nd ones are a different, completely different location in Miranda.
Thank you. And Mayor Honey.
I think everything's been covered. One thing I wanted to say, Miranda is growing like crazy. People are trying to come here, whether it's residents or commercial or even expansion at the airport and everything else. The biggest problem right now in Miranda is not demand. It's supply side, whether it's personnel at the town or many other agencies, or whether it's supplies for the home builders. We have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of homes in Miranda that are framed up and have partial roofs on them and everything like that. The industry can't get materials to finish the housing. And so that's kind of the issue now. People want to come here. It's just the industry can't get materials to finish a lot of these projects. We're doing really well.
Okay.
I have a question regarding that sort of, but this may be a question for Terry. The fire that they had out at Saguaro Bloom, where those houses under construction were burned, is there been any resolution?
That's a Northwest question.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking from a catching the bad guys.
There's not been a resolution.
Okay.
They don't have any suspects. They sent material on Quantico, evaluated the accelerants that they used. Any DNA that they've gathered has resulted in. So right now it is it's a case without needs unless someone forward and says, yeah, I know.
How many homes is that?
8%.
All right. Well, thank you all. I'm going to turn it over to Amanda to give us the last little bit.
Got three fingers not to forget, so I'm going to go. Real quick, I just had a moment. So many of you know my family moved here just under 2 years ago. I just clapped when you mentioned monsoons. When I first moved here, I thought how odd it was when it rains. Everyone is so happy. The drive through, they're like, I hear we're getting rain today. I moved from a very rainy state, so I was like, how weird. I just clapped when you said monsoons. It happened quickly. I am a part of the desert. I love it. So just wanted to say that. That's not one of my three. We have a ribbon cutting for a new business, Marana Chiropractic, right up in that north region of Marana. That is August 5th. It's going to be a Friday, 10 o'clock. They're having a bounce castle. A lot of those businesses that are there are coming together, so I hope that you can attend that. 10 o'clock, the ribbon cuts at 10:30. And then next, we have an annual meeting for the Miranda Chamber of Commerce on September 2nd. That's going to be at the Highlands. I hope that you can attend that. It's a breakfast this year. It's a breakfast event, so you can start your day there and then head on. So please come to that. And then lastly, we have our Miranda Chamber of Commerce Ed Stolmaker Golf Tournament. I'm a former president CEO of the Miranda Chamber for a very long time, past a year and a half ago, and we have renamed that to honor him. This is the second year. That is September 16th. So there's a lot of really fun sponsorships this year, including a golf ball sponsorship. Get your logo on the golf ball of the tournament. So beverage cart sponsors, some really fun things. So I hope that you will consider supporting that. And with that, thank you so much for staying a little extra for us today. And thanks for a great turnout moving back to this format. I think this is a real winner. We're able to have people who want to join virtually and then also have a full crowd. So thanks for being here and have a great day.